Hello, and welcome to the 2018 Mother of the Nation Festival. My name is Esraa, and today I'm going to speak to you about unleashing your potential. But first, I would like to start off by sharing a story with you, a story that is so near and dear to my heart. Let's go on a time capsule to 1978. I'm not going to tell you if I was alive then, because then you'll figure out my age. But this story is not about me. It's about someone called Ibrahim. Ibrahim was a young boy, a young man from Darfur in the west of Sudan. How many of you guys know of Darfur? Heard of it? Good amount, because it's in the news a lot. So he's from the area called Darfur. And in that region, usually a lot of the kids back in the 60s and 70s, they go through schooling, which, mostly it's Quran schooling, and they memorize, the Quran and stuff. That region is actually very known to have the highest level of people to memorize the Quran. Ibrahim actually went to boarding schools after he went to these madrasa schools, and he took the exam, the national exam, and there in the west of Sudan, they do a national exam where all kids from all regions actually take the exact same exam, and then they rank them. He came second in the country. So Ibrahim, along with 10 other students, were given a full ride to go to the city of Khartoum back in the 70s. And that's where he started his journey, in the University of Khartoum in the 70s. He studied medicine. He chose medicine. He graduated. He started lecturing in a university called Jamiat al-Jazeera, which is the University of Jazeera in an area called Wad Madani. That could have been his potential. He already had achievements, went through schooling, came second in the country, got a full scholarship, graduated med school. That wasn't his ceiling. That wasn't his highest potential. Ibrahim saw more for himself. Fast forward 10 years later, 1988, in Jamiat al-Jazeera, every day Ibrahim had the same routine. He walks to his class with his briefcase, in and out, and there is this bulletin board that usually has announcements about, the classes that they're teaching and all of these different things. One day he noticed something different in that bulletin board. And it was 3 brochures that had the word Humphrey Fellowship Program. It caught his attention. He was in a hurry, grabbed one of the brochures, continued on, and later on quietly kind of went through looking at this program that kind of expanded his horizons. There was something beyond this university and beyond this potential that was already an achievement for some who were back in Al-Da'an in Darfur. So he started assembling his application. He was going to America. And he put together his certificates, his college, degrees, all of these things together, and neatly filled out this application. But there was one small additional instruction. He had to be signed and approved by the dean of his university. Now, one thing I did not mention to you guys is that back in the day, there was actually a segregation or kind of a difference between those who did come from the West versus those who were from the city. And there were more westernized, and at the time there was a lot of influence from Britain, and the people who came from the West were looked at as not as uppity or whatever. So there was a group of people who definitely did not see a higher potential for Ibrahim. Okay, so he applied and he went to the dean of the university and handed in his applications. Hello, I would like for you to sign this for me. The dean said, no. But he didn't only say no, I wouldn't sign this. He said, no, the likes of you will never leave this place. So, Ibrahim gathered his applications and his shattered dreams and put it back into his briefcase, continued on his daily routine. But that experience exposed him that there was something beyond Wad Madani. There was something beyond the University of Jazeera. There was something beyond this all. So, in a sense, his horizons were expanded. One day, Ibrahim, 2 weeks after, his wife, was trying to knock some sense into him. She's like, Ibrahim, we're doing well. Look, we have a villa. The kids are going to a private schooling. Everything is great. You don't need to be, worried about this. But the application deadline didn't come in. He still had a belief that something is going to happen for him. So he was passing by Nadi Jazeera, Nadi al-Atibba, which is the club, the doctor's club. And in the doctor's club, he found the dean outside, and he was slightly incoherent, and I'm not going to tell you what are the different ways that people can become incoherent. He said, Abu Khalil, that's the name they give him. Where have you been? I haven't seen you for a long time. Me? You've seen me last week, Ibrahim says to him. Me? What did you come about? What did you come to me about? He was like, I actually came for you to sign for my application for the Humphrey Fellow, and you basically told me no, and that the likes of me would never leave this place. He said, me? Shame on me. Do you have the application? Ibrahim always, every day, to remember this dream, had it right there with him. Pulls it out, gives it to him, he signs it, and he gets in his application. Naysayers, right? There was about 1,638 applicants. Out of them, 150 got narrowed down. Out of the 150, 28 from around the world were selected by the US Department of State for this highly prestigious scholarship. Out of them, 7 were from Africa, and one of them, who left this place that they told him he would never leave, never say never, was Ibrahim. So this opened up a new horizon for him. He went on to work for the UN, Security Council, WHO, and various universities, and traveled the world and reached his potential. My question to you today for this story is to really think about, was this a coincidence? Was this a coincidence? Was it a strike of luck? Or is there actually a group of systems and a group of factors that when they come together causes the success fairy to bless you? Think about your life. Take a moment and think about your life. Is all of these different milestones and stuff in your life random? What if they were not? What if all of your good and the bad were actually part of a plan that was already orchestrated for you? Which gets us to the core of our talk today. And I'm going to link it back to the story. So keep that in your mind. You hear this a lot. Lots of talks have this title, Reaching Your Highest Potential, Reaching Your Highest Potential, Greatness. What does that mean? It means different things for different people. But for me, I focus more on the actualization or the realization of your potential more than the actual definition of what it is. So if there is one word that you guys would like to learn about and leave here with, it's the word Entelechy. You might see it with an I and sometimes with an E, Entelechy. And that is when Aristotle, taking you beyond the 1970s, he was just so curious about how things exist. How do they form? How do they exist? But there was one example that he gave that was brilliant, and it stuck with me forever. And Aristotle basically gave an example of an acorn. And he basically gave an example that an acorn, when it realizes its fullest potential, it becomes an oak tree. Okay? Through the process of entelechy. Okay? So think about this. An acorn, if you plant it, cannot turn into a banana tree, a palm tree, an orange tree, and that is sometimes the problem with a lot of people not reaching their highest potential, is because you're living through the blueprints of other people's lives, not realizing what you came wired with. What did you come with? What are the environment and blueprints and things that you came with? People are busy trying to make it using other people's lives, whereas you have your own entelechy. If you're an acorn, your highest potential is becoming an oak tree, not a banana tree. So, what are some of these processes or the actual tools that puts you in motion when you're in this entelechy? They're very easy. BDV. If you can remember those three. BDV. B stands for belief. Believe in yourself. It's simple, but if you look at all of these self-help books and self-help techniques, visualize, yourself doing it. So at the core of it is the belief in yourself. Believing that you're actually an oak tree. Believing that you're actually worthy of deserving a scholarship by the U.S. Department when you're in Wood Medani. Believing in yourself. Connecting with that vision on a daily basis as a routine. Faking it till you make it. Okay, I have lots of cat pictures. And your reality is a reflection of your strongest belief. That's why it's very important that core, what you see yourself, is extremely important. Second one is D. D stands for discipline. You might find that there are people from certain cultures that are more efficient, because you would find in the core of their system is discipline sometimes. But of course, on its own, it's not anything. It needs to come with the other factors. There was an amazing study that came out in 1993 that was by Erickson, Kampf, and Romer, probably butchering their names all. But it was about the role of deliberate practice in the acquisition of expert performance. What does that mean? It means when you realize a talent or you have a passion, you sometimes need to strengthen it. A lot of people look at people who are good at things and think they were born with it, genetically they have. But actually, this study, they took a group of violin students who were studying the violin. They also repeated the study also again with pianists, people who are playing the piano. It was a longitudinal study, and they looked at them over time. And they realized that right about 10,000 hours is when someone achieves expertise in a skill. Okay? So if you start today learning the violin, if you spend 10,000 hours learning the violin, you would set yourself apart from people who started at the same time as you and have the same skill set as you, 50% higher. So you become about an expert in that. So they found out that that was around the time. Deliberate practice is a highly structured activity designed specifically to improve performance. Believing in yourself, realizing what is it that your Entelechy is, right? So you're an acorn, you're not trying to be an orange tree. Like really, what are you wired for? Then disciplining yourself to deliberately strengthening these skills. This study wasn't even popular until a guy by the name of Michael Gladwell came up with a book called Outliers, and he really hashed out this thing, and people then started, talking about it more. This is the key number, 10,000 hours, which is about 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 44 weeks a year, 5.5 years. You'll be an expert in something. But my own opinion and my own belief is that this works out for things that are more talent-driven. So sports, music, games, certain things that this would actually totally apply. V. This is my favorite word. Yesterday I was with my friend at the nail salon. We were sitting and talking about vulnerability. I bet everyone in the salon were like, what are you guys talking about? It's my favorite word. So vulnerability means different things for different people. Most people think that it's weakness, being weak at the knees or weakness. Vulnerability is actually being open and not fearing showing up and showing who you really are from the inside, okay? Taking risks, taking courage, being vulnerable. And a lot of the times the question occurs over and over again. If you weren't fearing anything, what would you achieve? If you weren't afraid of being shamed by people or being rejected by your parents or, being cut off or whatever it is, if you're not afraid of something and you are just truly who you are, what would you achieve? But this is my most favorite definition of vulnerability. It is our most accurate measurement of courage. For me, vulnerability is courage. So before ending, I just wanted to let you know that the beginning story that I talked about, which is Ibrahim, you would see that he had the B, believe in himself. He had the D, discipline. He worked towards things over and over again. And V, vulnerability. He wasn't afraid to ask. He wasn't afraid to be rejected. He asked again, and he didn't lose hope. These were factors of realizing your fullest potential. Now, I would like to open up the floor for questions. Who is going to go for the first question? Yes.
How would we know which type of tree are we? For example, am I an orange tree or a banana tree? What is my thing that I can achieve and succeed when I do it? How can I know it? How can I figure it out?
I think this is a really good question. A lot of the times people want to know, is this voice that I'm hearing is my voice, or is it the voice of my parents, or is it the voice of, this person that I'm, following or whatever? There are many different ways. There are actually people who could help you take, for example, a passions test to kind of figure out what your passion is. Sometimes it is a journey of unveiling, like getting rid of a lot of voices that you had, and it might be a totally different process that would allow for you to realize that. And sometimes it's as simple as, if I didn't fear anything, what would I actually be doing? Sometimes we have this voice that keeps knocking over and over and over again throughout our lives that we kind of ignore or suppress, but that usually has a hint of what direction that we should be, going. But I would highly recommend the passions test or one of these to realize if you're an oak tree, an orange tree. And it's a lifetime journey. And you would hear a lot of the times that people's, as you're going in that journey, your goals or your pathways to get to that highest potential changes. So just following that micro ambitions and micro steps and getting there. Any other questions? So I wanted to end, of course, with one of my most favorite quotes from Barack Obama. And it's not one of those quotes that when you listen to it, it's has all of these big words or whatever. It was a quote of him speaking to his daughters, Sasha and Malaya. And he basically said, gear yourself for the long haul. Whatever path you choose, business, nonprofit, healthcare, government, education, the arts, whatever it is, you're going to have setbacks. You will deal occasionally with foolish people. You will be frustrated. You will have a boss that's not great. You will always get everything you want. You won't always get everything you want, at least not as fast as you want it. So you have to stick with it. You have to be persistent. That discipline thing. And success, however small, however incomplete, success is still success. I always tell my daughters, better is good. It may not be perfect. It may not be great, but it's good. That's how progress happens in societies and in our own lives. And before I end, I wanted to thank all of those people who have helped me realize my Entelechy and inspirational stories like that of Ibrahim. So I wanted to tell you Ibrahim is actually my father. And that trip to the US opened up all sorts of doors for him, from Darfur to the US to now me standing here with you today. Ibrahim, please stand up. We'd like to thank you for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you, guys.